So the first thing is, what I want to ask you is, how did you come to art? How did art come to you?
I was born into art. I believe so much in destiny. I believe in purposefulness of life. I believe everyone is placed upon the space of art of the earth for a purpose, for a reason, and a rhyme. So art is my reason and rhyme. I discovered myself very early. My earliest memory goes back to like when I was 5 years old, when I used to draw with a broomstick right on the sand in the neighborhood in Agege where I was born. That was my earliest memory. And my primary school days too, I took some art lessons in primary school. I remember 2 years later when I went back to get a testimonial, the art teacher grabbed me, rushed me into the classroom and showed me to all the students. This is the boy that did that drawing. I had done a drawing of the Benin masquerade. Benin masquerades used to turn around, spin around like anti-graffiti spins. I loved that so much. So I did a drawing, and it was in my primary school. So that's the beginning. That's how I know that art is implanted in me, and eventually we'll get to how I decided to be an artist.
So, in our conversation the other day when we were looking at your archives, we found this piece of paper that reminded you of your mother. Can you speak to me a little bit about the influence of your mother in terms of your artistic practice?
Yes, that's pertinent in the sense that every human being has a gene. When we have children, naturally elements of our genes get passed on. My mom's gene, I would say I took because my mom used to draw. She was a seamstress, so she would draw on this brown paper, trace it out on pillowcases, bed sheets, and do knitting. And she used to do like sweaters too. I think they used to call it atmakasa those days. So from then, sometimes I did assist her, and I didn't know I was going to be a professional artist eventually, but it's from her genes that I got this. So I still have some of her drawings of like 60 years old drawings I showed you. I've never really shown a lot of stuff to the public, but because of the way you approached the matter and the way you came up with this concept, I really felt this is divine, and that's why I showed you my mom's drawings.
Well, that really shows me that actually you were living with art from even a very young age, so perhaps it's self-explanatory that you became an artist. So one of the things that I find, because my practice actually came out of writing, is that people sometimes think that artists are lazy and so forth, but in fact, you have to be quite disciplined in order to become a really good artist. Can you speak to us about how you were giving yourself assignments early on?
Yes, that's the sense of purposefulness that I was talking about earlier on. It's important that we know ourselves. Know thyself, that's the injunction. It's good for every human being to know who they are supposed to be. I knew myself from a long time. I became very conscious of who I was as a human being, who I was as a race. Specifically, I could pinpoint 1967, 66, 67. Miriam Makeba left South Africa to go into exile in the US because of the apartheid regime. I was conscious of that. I still have the record Miriam Makeba released with the Harry Belafonte Orchestra. That's how conscious I was. I was 11, 12. Same period, Millicent Small had a huge hit in Nigeria. She was, I think she's still alive though, a British, West Indian British singer. Had this huge hit, My Boy Lollipop, I Love Sweet Williams, If I Have a Wing Like a Dove, And I hear that on the rediffusion. Those days we had this contraption called a rediffusion. When I listen, I loved it so much. And interestingly, Bournvita was my favorite drink. Cadbury Nigeria brought Millicent Small to Lagos on a promotional tour. And they had this promotion. If you have the tin foils of 400-gram Bonvita, 4 of them. You come to a designated point, you will be given a prize. It was being handed over by Millicent Small. You know, Africans, we've lost a lot of our culture. When you hear names like Millicent Small, you never imagine she was African. In essence, I thought she was British European. So when I went with my aunt to get my gift, because I had those tin foils to present, I saw Millicent Small. Lo and behold, she was just like me, exactly my skin tone. I was so mesmerized.
Yeah.
I was 12. That's the consciousness. That's the way I grew up. So by the time I finished secondary school in 1973, the interregnum between when WAEC certificate will come, it took like 2 years then. And also either you're going to university or you're traveling abroad. You know, very, very peculiar. We have to travel abroad for the golden fleece, so to speak. The period I had ample time, so I kept practicing and practicing and practicing. And the discipline came within me because I was enjoying what I was doing. And I was self-conscious about who I was as a human being. So because I was my own teacher, I gave myself assignments. The drawing book outside, my surviving drawing book, was actually from that point. That particular year, I said I was going to do a drawing a day. And yes, I did that. I will wake up. I could just take this piece as a still life material. I'll make sure I finish. Sometimes my mom sent me on errand, and by the time I come back, maybe in the evening, she will say, "Go and take your food." I said, "No, I've not achieved my purpose today. I'll quickly finish up the drawing." So that was the discipline. Then, fast forward, I met Fela Kuti. Discipline, hard work. I learned that from Fela. I'm a workaholic, as you see me. I shy away from social activities a lot, even though I service the entertainment industry for 40 years now. I still love my own company. I love my company. I am digital literate, so to speak. I have my laptop on my bed. So a lot of times I get bored, I'm busy. I learned that from Fela. As a teenager, I met Fela when I was 18. It's important to mention this because young people today see the glamour. They see Hollywood, they hear about all these hip-hop stars, even Beyonce and all these people. If you see the regime of discipline that they have, they go through, the hard work. If you see Beyonce rehearsing for a show, you bow. So the blowing that you talk about today, what is blowing? You don't blow. You evolve. If you blow, you burst like balloon. So that's the reality. So I grew up, with that practice. So every time I'm with Fela, I'm watching him, I'm studying him, whatever he's doing. Fela branded himself as an individual artist. He created his own lifestyle. His clothing was done by his personal tailor. He had a tailor. Every week, Fela is buying new clothes. So his shoes were made by his personal shoemaker. His briefs, his bata, his pants was made by his tailor. So I'll be wondering. Then we are with Fela, we are discussing. Fela has this regime, he has to practice hours a day. But he has to break it down because he has so many things going on. Like as we speak, Fela will have his sax here and we'll take a brief moment. Then he talks to you again like Missla. And I'll be wondering, wow. Then, I got that embedded in me. So that's how.
So can you, because I'm actually showing right here as one of the slides is, it's from your sketchbook. This, we graciously have one of the sketches actually from Lemi from the early 70s in the display case. So I hope that after you participate in this conversation, it will help you and you'll go back and look at these things and see his work in a bigger way. And my question about self-discipline, like these still lives really sort of speak to that, but it also set you up for something very important to happen. Out of doing one of these paintings, self-initiated paintings, you met the journalist, is it Babatunde, is that correct?
Yeah.
So can you tell me what happened in this meeting and how it really sort of changed your life,
Yeah,
actually.
entirely. Yeah, it turned my life around 360 because my dad wanted me to be a mechanical engineer. So I was studying in technical school. I was in Yaba College of Tech secondary school section. I took these technical subjects, including woodwork, technical drawing, and the sciences. So at that point in time where I gave myself assignment, I became a portrait artist in the neighborhood. So I've been earning money since I was 17. Yeah. I started painting portraits, and I was earning 30 naira. For you to know the value of 30 naira today, just multiply it by 360. Because then, the naira was superior to the dollar, believe it or not. The dollar was 75 cents to a naira. So, I was doing that. Then, interestingly, one of my neighbors, he had this beer parlor, a drink place, and he came to me. Rather than commission me to do his portrait, he commissioned me to do the painting of Bruce Lee's poster, Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee's film came out that year. It was very successful. So there were 3 major actors, Bruce Lee, John Saxon, and Jim Kelly. So this man, he's an German. He commissioned me to do the poster of Bruce Lee's film. So I did that. And item 2, Fela released the album called Music of Fela, Ruffo Ruffo Fight. I loved the music. I was listening and listening. One day, for my practice, my spirit said to me, why don't you do this? Do a version of the cover. That was for my assignment for that particular day. So I followed my spirit and I did that. Then there was this journalist called Babatunde Harrison. He worked for Sunday Punch. Those days, the Punch newspaper we know today started in 73, 74. It used to be weekly, every Sunday. So it was called Sunday Punch. Babatunde Harrison loved to drink. He came to that drink place to drink, and he saw the Bruce Lee poster. So he asked, who did this? And they said, one small boy next door. So being a journalist, he was interested. They brought him to see me, and he asked for my other drawings. I brought up my drawings, and he saw the Fela cover, my own version of Ruffo Ruffo Fight. And he said to me, can you do album covers? Interestingly enough, I had done 2 covers previously. But, I didn't take it seriously. My uncle had a band. I was learning to play the high life guitar with him. Then he was recording, and he said to me, you keep drawing every time. Why don't you draw something for my album? So I did the drawing, but it was not published. Decca West Africa then, 1, it was not totally professional. Number 2, it was too embellished. It was a double cover. And my uncle's band was a fledgling high life band, so they didn't have a budget for that kind of cover. So it ended up not being used. It's outside now. Yeah, it's one of the items outside. So I've kept it for 44 years now, straight. So I didn't give up. I met another singer, the NTS. That's today's NTA, National Television Authority, was previously Nigerian Television Service. I met a musician. We became friends. So I did his cover. His name, he died 2 years back. Tessie Allen. The group was called World Affairs. I did that cover, and I even wrote a poem on the back of that cover, not knowing that was what was going my role in this life. So when Babatunde asked if I could do covers, I answered in the affirmative, but not very sure of myself. And he said to me, 2 days before that day, he and Fela were discussing about cover art, and I looked at him. I said, this uncle must be drunk, because he was coming from the drink place. So I couldn't believe, he knew Fela. And, Fela was already popular, even though notoriously popular, not as what we know him today. But so when he said that, I took it with a pinch of salt. And he said to me he was going to bring a photograph from Punch newspaper collection for me to do a Fela portrait as test for me. So I said, okay, yeah, I'm ready for that test. The next day he brought the photograph. 24 hours had finished. And my mom had always been supportive. My mom gave me 5 naira to frame, glaze and frame. The artwork was 18 by 24. So within 24 hours, I had done everything. In the evening, I looked, towards the road, expecting Babatunde Harrison. The moment I saw him, I said, Uncle, I just showed him the painting. And he said, I'm not going to drink. Let's go. I'm taking you to Fela. So I felt, oh, is this serious? So I told my mom. My mom said, be careful. so he hailed a taxi, straight, went to Calacuta. And that was the beginning of my destiny.
And what was Fella's response when he saw that album?
You got time?
Well, if we say...
Let me just do it briefly. Eventually, I met Fella. Let me cut it short. And Fella saw the portrait, looked at it, and said, "Wow, god damn." It was the first time I had those two words in my life. He was so thrilled, but I was so nervous. You know, he was dressed in his pants. The pant was dropping. He was half asleep because he just woke up. And I said to him, "Good afternoon, sir." I said, "Don't sir me, call me Fella." And I was shaky. So he loved the artwork so much, he ushered me inside the house. And he asked me what I wanted. I said I drink Fanta. They gave me Fanta. then he thought he got his checkbook out, and he wrote out a check. He asked for my name, wrote my name, wrote out a check, and handed it over to me. I collected the check. I looked at 120 naira. You know, I earned 30 naira for my portraits. That's 4 times. He didn't know how much I earned though. So when I look at the check like this, I was 18. I was looking 120. Those days, 4 naira is the rent you pay for a house. B2 car was 969 naira. You know, 120 is even getting close to buying a car. So, but my spirit said no. So I immediately handed over the check back to Fella. I said, "Fella, I don't want money. I give you from the bottom of my heart." And, you know, he was mesmerized. He was surprised. So he asked his personal assistant, Aham. He said, "Aham, bring my notebook." So Aham brought, I think some of you here, most of you, will know this primary school exercise book, the blue colored one with the Olympic. Yeah, you know Olympic. All of them I don't old though. So they brought out, the assistant brought out the Olympic notebook, and he tore out a sheet and he wrote, "Please admit bearer any show free of charge." So I collected that. That was my passport and visa to Kalakuta Republic and to my destiny.
So Fella was an incredibly significant person for you. He had many ideas that influenced your practice, influenced how you would operate. And one of the things relates to education. So Lemi showed me this book, actually, that is from the 70s. It's the first book that you purchased, I believe, first book that you purchased. Mm-hmm. And, you know, today when I think about it, the thing that sort of comes to my mind is, I believe in Fella's, one of Fella's songs, it says, "Teacher, don't teach me no nonsense."
Yes, indeed.
So in speaking to that, because I have, as you can see, I have this. Can you tell me about this book, what it meant for you, how it relates to Fella's ideas, and how you wrote some of these things here? Because it says Blackism, a force of the mind. This is something that Lemi did, you know, 40 years ago.
43 years ago.
He has an incredible memory.
Yeah.
And you'll see that this is actually out in the display in above his exhibition.
Wow, that's very interesting. It's important to know thyself. It's very important because I studied metaphysics with Fella also. Knowing thyself will make you who you are supposed to be. It will give you that boldness, and you can tell society FUCK. Yes, indeed. You know what happened is today when I look back, I just shake my head. I shake my head that wow, it was good I knew myself. My dad wanted me to be a mechanical engineer. Naturally, society those days. It's even interesting that we have evolved to the level now. So when you have a baby boy, you buy football for the baby to start practicing quick. Maybe it's going to be an okocha. You understand? In recent times, people are into stand-up comedy. Music is there. You understand? Those days, 3 main professions. All parents want their children either to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. So my dad chose engineer because my dad didn't go to too much school. He was a plant operator for PWD, later Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. My dad was part of the people who constructed Ikorodu Road. He drives the grader. So he saw in me that, since I cannot be an engineer, my son has to be an engineer. And that was what I was on the verge of doing. I finished secondary school. I was practicing. I met Fela. See, trouble. Fela loved to read, and I had loved to read. I don't know people who remember James Ali Chase. I read at least 32 James Ali Chase. I always loved to read. I even have books like Seize the Time, Bobby Seale, The Days of the Black Panther Movement. Long before I met Fela, I have Blood in My Eyes, George Jackson, the Black Panther, the information minister for the Black Panther Movement. So I'd always loved to read. Then an artist, older artist who was in Yaba Tech, was my neighbor. We lived on the same street. I ran around for him. I look at what he's doing. Uncle, how did you do this? In those days, we don't even use the word uncle. We use brother. We say, brother, how did you do this? He will show me. He put in for the Southeastern State coat of arms, and he won. I was the one who even had the announcement on radio, and the prize was 5,000 naira. 5,000 those days. So I became more interested in art, like, oh, there's a way in this art. This Uncle Williams F. Young did the Southeastern State emblem and won, and 5,000, you know. So I got more interested. So by that time, people started telling me, you didn't do art, you don't have any certificate in art. Go and take GCE to prove that you really know it. So I took GCE. I took art, just art, and result came, I got A1 distinction. So I was excited. So I went to Fela, because we were so close. I used to seek advice from him and also my mom. So I said to Fela, Fela, I don't do GCO. The result don't come, I pass well. Make a cuckoo go study art. And Fela said, Lemi, people like you are born geniuses. I've seen your talent. That's why I gave you this opportunity. He said, see, me, my parents sent me to England to study medicine. I ended up studying music because that's what I can do. He said, but they taught me colonial music. They taught me, you know, classical music. When I got back, I was struggling to play high life jazz. Rex Lawson, people like that didn't study any music. You know, I couldn't stand with them until I discovered myself. He said, but it's not a lot of people that can shake away that, you know, colonialism when it's embedded in you already. He said, if you go to a university now to study art, if you are not strong, you lose your identity. You lose your originality. He said, I will advise, because you love to read, why don't you buy books on art, different artists, read, learn, pick what you want. And my spirit said, he's right. But I started concerning myself with society, with my peers, my friends. What would they say? If I say I'm not going to university, they'll say, he has gone to smoke a with Fela, it's crazy. But anything my spirit told me, that's why I'm saying know thyself. I commune with my spirit every time. The moment my spirit said it's okay, so I said, okay, let me check with my mom. My mom was very spiritual. She's late now. She was a member of the Cherubim and Seraphim movement, but you know, I don't believe in religion anyway. I used to tell her, because I study metaphysics, I used to tell her, it's your gift. It's not the Bible or the Jesus that you are calling. You have the gift. My mom was a seer. She can look at you, just do her prayers. That's meditation to me. And she would tell you your life story. So when I told my mom, I said, this is what Fela advised. So my mom said, okay, let me put in prayers. The next day, my mom called me, said, not a problem, it's your destiny. I said, So I now said, to hell with anybody else. So I bought the full covers previously. But, you know, I didn't take it seriously. My uncle had a band. I was learning to play the high life guitar with him. Then he was recording, and he said to me, you keep drawing every time. Why don't you draw something for my album? So I did the drawing, but it was not published. Decca West Africa then, one, it was not totally professional. Number two, it was too embellished. It was a double cover. And my uncle's band was a fledgling high life band, so they didn't have a budget for that kind of cover. So it ended up not being used. It's outside now. Yeah, it's one of the items outside. So I've kept it for 44 years now, straight. So I didn't give up. I met another singer, the NTS. That's today's NTA, National Television Authority, was previously Nigerian Television Service. I met a musician we became friends. So I did his cover. His name, he died 2 years back. Tessie Alan. The group was called World Affairs. I did that cover, and I even wrote a poem on the back of that cover. Not knowing that was what was going my role in this life. So when Babatunde asked if I could do covers, I answered in the affirmative, but not very sure of myself. And he said to me, 2 days before that day, he and Fela were discussing about cover art. And I looked at him. I said, this uncle must be drunk, because he was coming from the drink place. So I couldn't believe, he knew Fela. And, Fela was already popular, even though notoriously popular, not as what we know him today. But so when he said that, I took it with a pinch of salt. And he said to me he was going to bring a photograph from Punch newspaper collection for me to do a Fela portrait as test for me. So I said, okay, yeah, I'm ready for that test. The next day he brought the photograph. 24 hours had finished. And my mom had always been supportive. My mom gave me 5 naira to frame, glaze and frame. The artwork was 18 by 24. So within 24 hours, I had done everything. In the evening, I looked, towards the road, expecting Babatunde Harrison. The moment I saw him, I said, Uncle, I just showed him the painting. And he said, I'm not going to drink. Let's go. I'm taking you to Fela. So I felt, oh, is this serious? So I told my mom. My mom said, be careful. so he hailed a taxi, straight went to Kalakuta. And that was the beginning of my destiny.
And what was Fela's response when he saw that album?
You got time?
Well, if we say...
Let me just do it briefly. Eventually, I met Fela. Let me cut it short. And Fela saw the portrait, looked at it and said, wow, god damn. It was the first time I had those 2 words in my life. He was so thrilled, but I was so nervous. He was dressed in his pants. The pant was dropping. He was half asleep because he just woke up. And I said to him, good afternoon, sir. I said, don't send me, call me Fela. And I was shaky. So he loved the artwork so much, he ushered me inside the house. And he asked me what I wanted. I said I'd drink Fanta. They gave me Fanta. then he thought, he got his checkbook out. And he wrote out a check. He asked for my name, wrote my name, wrote out a check, and handed it over to me. I collected the check. I looked at 120 naira. I earned 30 naira for my portraits. That's 4 times. He didn't know how much I earned, though. So when I look at the check like this, I was 18. I was looking 120. Those days, 4 naira is the rent you pay for a house. B2 car was 969 naira. 120 is even getting close to buying a car. So, but my spirit said no. So I immediately handed over the check back to Fela. I said, Fela, I don't want money. I give you from the bottom of my heart. And, he was mesmerized. He was surprised. So he asked his personal assistant, Aham. He said, Aham, bring my notebook. So Aham brought, I think some of you here, most of you, will know this primary school exercise book, the blue colored one with the Olympic. Yeah, Olympic. All of them I don't owe though. So they brought out, the assistant brought out the Olympic notebook and he tore out a sheet and he wrote, please admit bearer any show free of charge. So I collected that. That was my passport and visa to Kalakuta Republic and to my destiny.
So Fela was an incredibly significant person for you. He had many ideas that influenced your practice, influenced how you would operate. And one of the things relates to education. So Lemi showed me this book, actually, that is from the 70s. It's the first book that you purchased, I believe, first book that you purchased. Mm-hmm. And today when I think about it, the thing that sort of comes to my mind is I believe in Fela's one of Fela's songs. It says, "Teacher, don't teach me no nonsense."
Yes, indeed.
So in speaking to that, because I have, as you can see, I have this. Can you tell me about this book? What it meant for you? How it relates to Fela's ideas, and how you wrote some of these things here? Because it says Blackism, a force of A Force of the Mind. This is something that Lemi did, 40 years ago.
43 years ago.
He has an incredible memory.
Yeah.
And you'll see that this is actually out in the display in above his exhibition.
Wow, that's very interesting. It's important to know thyself. It's very important because I study metaphysics with Fela also. Knowing thyself will make you who you are supposed to be. It will give you that boldness, and you can tell society F-U-C-K. Yes, indeed. You know what happened is today when I look back, I just shake my head. I shake my head that wow, it was good I knew myself. My dad wanted me to be a mechanical engineer. Naturally, society those days. It's even interesting that we have evolved to the level now. So when you have a baby boy, you buy football for the baby to start practicing quick. Maybe he's going to be an okocha. You understand? In recent times, people are into stand-up comedy. Music is there. You understand? Those days, three main professions. All parents want their children either to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. So my dad chose engineer because my dad didn't go to too much school. He was a plant operator for PWD, later Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. My dad was part of people who constructed Ikorodu Road. He drives the grader. So he saw in me that, since I cannot be an engineer, my son has to be an engineer. And that was what I was on the verge of doing. I finished secondary school. I was practicing. I met Fela. See, trouble. Fela loved to read, and I had loved to read. I don't know people who remember James Ali Chase. I read at least 32 James Ali Chase. I always loved to read. I even have books like Seize the Time, Bobby Seale, The Days of the Black Panther Movement. Long before I met Fela, I have Blood in My Eyes, George Jackson, the Black Panther, the information minister for the Black Panther Movement. So I'd always loved to read. Then an artist, older artist who was in Yaba Tech, was my neighbor. We lived on the same street. I ran errand for him. I look at what he's doing. Uncle, how did you do this? In those days, we don't even use the word uncle. We use brother. We say, brother, how did you do this? He will show me. He put in for the Southeastern State coat of arms, and he won. I was the one who even had the announcement on radio, and the prize was 5,000 naira. 5,000 those days. So I became more interested in art, like, there's a way in this art. This Uncle Williams F. Young did the Southeastern State emblem and won, and 5,000, So I got more interested. So by that time, people started telling me, you didn't do art, you don't have any certificate in art. Go and take GCE to prove that you really know it. So I took GCE. I took art, just art, and result came, I got A1 distinction. So I was excited. So I went to Fela, because we were so close. I used to seek advice from him, and also my mom. So I said to Fela, Fela, I don't do GCU. The result don't come, I pass well. Make a cuckoo go study art. And Fela said, Lemi, people like you are born geniuses. I've seen your talent. That's why I gave you this opportunity. He said, see, me, my parents sent me to England to study medicine. I ended up studying music because that's what I can do. He said, but they taught me colonial music. They taught me, classical music. When I got back, I was struggling to play high life jazz. Rex Lawson, people like that didn't study any music. I couldn't stand with them until I discovered myself. He said, but it's not a lot of people that can shake away that colonialism when it's embedded in you already. He said, if you go to a university now to study art, if you are not strong, you lose your identity. You lose your originality. He said, I will advise, because you love to read, why don't you buy books on art, different artists, read, learn, pick what you want. And my spirit said, he's right. But I started concerning myself with society, with my peers, my friends. What would they say? If I say I'm not going to university, they'll say, he has gone to smoke Igbo with Fela. It's crazy. But anything my spirit told me, that's why I'm saying know thyself. I commune with my spirit every time. The moment my spirit said it's okay, so I said, okay, let me check with my mom. My mom was very spiritual. She's late now. She was a member of the cherubim and seraphim movement. But, I don't believe in religion anyway. I used to tell her, because I study metaphysics, I used to tell her, it's your gift. It's not the Bible or the Jesus that you are calling. You have the gift. My mom was a seer. She can look at you, just do her prayers. That's meditation to me. And she would tell you your life story. So when I told my mom, I said, this is what fella advice. So my mom said, okay, let me put in prayers. The next day, my mom called me, said, not a problem, it's your destiny. I said, So I now said, to hell with anybody else. So I bought the first book. That's the book. September 1, 1975. So I bought the book immediately. I went to CMS bookshop. If you remember CMS bookshop, those days we have books, very progressive books to buy from CMS. So I went to CMS. That book is titled The History of World Art. It's on the shelf outside. I've been keeping it all these years. I take it out when I travel around the globe. Thank goodness now. I do workshops everywhere. So I'm very happy to be doing this. I was in Australia 3 weeks ago. This place is a bit small though. Australia, 350 people came in. 350 sealed up, bam. You understand? Now only 70 people they here. We need to wake up more. You understand? It's important because we are passing. Like Muhammad Ali is one of my heroes. I remember one time he made a speech and he said, this is wisdom you're hearing today. You may not hear it again. So it's an opportunity. So so when my mom agreed, so I said to her with anybody. So I bought the book. And the first thing I did, because I like to look and learn and practice immediately. So from the book, this came with the book, this drawing. Then I didn't know the artist called Matisse. So his drawing was in the book. The moment I got the book, I said, Miss, if I can do something like this, I did this. The same day I bought the book. So I translated my own vision vis-a-vis what we're doing with Fela, the Pan-African thought. So I have the element of the male and the female gender in Africa. If we come together, it becomes powerful. So, and that was the slogan we used those days. Blackism, a force of the mind. Today, I would like to update it to Pan-Africanism, a force of the mind.
So, I think one of the things that has been so hard is that the conversations that we've had have been so rich. I've learned so much from speaking with Lemi, understanding his practice, and I feel like we actually need a big exhibition. So if somebody wants to sponsor a big exhibition, we'd be very happy to speak to you about that. But besides that, one of the details that I understood about his practice is that there's different ways how you can understand the things that were happening for him. And one of the things is the way that Lemi was signing his work. So as you can see here, it's signed Ghariokwu Lemi. But Lemi, can you tell us your first name and how this sort of transition and how this also appears in the album covers? Because there's also a connection with Fela's name, right?
Mm-hmm, yes, I know myself. I was born named Emmanuel Sunday. So those are the names of my certificate. Even my first drawings, I funkified it to Sonny. That was the surname I was using.
Yeah,
but by 1975 is very significant in my life. That was my 20th year on Earth. I'm going to be 62 in December. So the consciousness had come. Fela had introduced us to books by Kwame Nkrumah. Most of us here will not know that Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, wrote so many books on Pan-Africanism. If our leaders in Africa, read, if they read, they will do better than they are doing right now. Kwame Nkrumah was one of the foundation members of the Organization of African Unity, now called African Union. Kwame Nkrumah had books like Africa Must Unite. Imagine that. Written in 1958, Africa Must Unite. He had books like Challenge of the Congo. Till now, the Congo is still under that challenge. He had books like Neocolonialism, the second phase of colonialism, and all that stuff. So Fela introduced us to those kind of books. There was this book called Stolen Legacy. The book did research, and it was written by George M. James. So you people, anybody who is interested can search these books, because we need to be conscious. We need to grow consciousness very, very, very importantly. So Like, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought right now.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So I was asking you about the way that you were signing on the record. So
Okay.
what is
Yeah.
it? Isn't
Yes,
what
yes.
what year did
1975. So
Okay,
1975, I took a lot of decisions in my life, and I still live by them today, and I don't have one single iota of regret. I feel even very proud of myself for taking those decisions. So, Fela, Muhammad Ali, like I said, is still one of my heroes. Muhammad Ali had changed his name from Cassius Clay when he realized, he became conscious, and he took up Muhammad Ali. Although that's a different story, because that's another religion again, Babylon. so that's 75. Fela came to that consciousness that ransom was a slave name that his family has been carrying on for ages. And he said, as a conscious African, why should he be bearing a slave name? So he decided he was going to change his surname from ransom. So he created that name, Anikulapo, in essence of the being that he is. And we talk about him today. He was even called Abamieda, reminiscent of his life and his identity as a human being. So we that were acolytes of Fela was our master, like we say in spiritual essence. We that believe strongly enough, who didn't have original African names. A lot of our Yoruba people are fortunate. They still keep that. Even though the consciousness is not really there, but it's a tradition. Most times you see Yoruba people, they still bear their Yoruba name, even though they are not conscious, so like everybody. so please, I'm talking from my heart. Nothing should be taken personal. I don't have anything against anybody. I'm just free. So I now thought, Emmanuel, Sunday. I said, nah. Where's my identity? I'm not an African man. You understand? So I started cracking my head. How do I, create my own names? Emmanuel, during the long vacations, those days we used to have 2-3 months vacation, Yabatek. Sometimes people will be wondering if I'm still going to school. So I used to go to my uncle's place in Ajegunle. I had always been very enterprising. My uncle had this beer business. He had these bicycles, like the ice cream bicycles. You can carry 4 cartons of beer. So I help him with his accounting. And I make a lot of money going back to school. But in Ajegunle, predominantly people speak Pidgin English. Mm-hmm. And that was what happened in Kalakuta. Pidgin English was like the lingua franca. So my Emmanuel became Emma. So they used to call me Emma. So when I get back to school, I would tell my friends, my friends in Ajegunle, I say, my name is Emma. And my friends, because they're trying to be tush, a lot of them are from Surulere. Surulere used to be New Lagos. It's like today when people talk about Lekki. Mm. So my fellow students who are from Surulere feel like uppish. And they say, Emma is too bush. So that's how they shorten it to Emmy. Mm. Then there was this magazine from, I think it was from South Africa. There was Drum Magazine. And there was this one, African Boom. It was a photo play, African detective. I love that a lot. So Lance Spearman had this friend of his, smallish guy, young guy like me. And his name was, in the character, his name was Lemi Caution. Mm-hmm. So my friends now said, from Emmy, they now jumped to Lemi. So they started calling me Lemi Caution. So by the time I wanted to change my names, I now started looking, what name will I take on? My Yoruba name is Abiodun because I was born on Boxing Day. So that's Yoruba tradition, when you're born during festival time. So I started thinking, what name will I take up? So I now thought of that Lemi. I'd been very popular with the Lemi. My first album cover for Fela, I signed it S.E. Lemi. That's Sunday Emmanuel Lemi. And I said,
that was Alagbon Close, right?
Alagbon Close. So I felt if I threw away Emmanuel and Sunday, I would lose my identity totally. So I took the Lemi. Then I started thinking, okay, I have to Africanize this. I have to create it that way. So a Yoruba name is Olalemi. So I just changed it. So I am the one who baptized myself at the end. So that's the Lemi that you hear today. But I had to go through metamorphosis again because I already signed Lemi, Lemmy.
Yeah.
So in 1975, Ikoyi blindness, I signed it as Ghariokwu, Lemmi. I wanted to come to Yoruba. So later I felt Yoruba doesn't use double M. So by 76, I was standing Lemi. The Ghariokwu came from my father. My father, surname, he was using his older brother's name as surname. You know, African tradition. They have, his father died when they were young, but he was the fifth born. The eldest child was already mature, so he moved in to live with his older brother. And the little school I attended, they registered him with the man's name, Oko. So I used to be Emmanuel Sunday Oko. So when my dad told me, I said, "That's your senior brother's name now." He said, "That's our tradition, you know, it doesn't matter." I said, "What's your father's name?" He said, "Ghariokwu." When I heard the sound of that name and the meaning, it related to me in essence. Ghariokwu means like foronole, forget the matter. You know, don't look for trouble. You understand?
Yeah.
And it suited me. So I told him
Absolutely.
I'm going to use that name. So I changed it. But interestingly now, the whole family has changed their surname to Ghariokwu.
That's fantastic. So, some of the details that you'll realize out of this project is that actually Lemi's albums were produced in, was it 12 and 3/4?
12 1/4 inches.
Yes.
Yeah.
But actually the prints that you see outside are printed at 16 by 16, and the idea really behind that is so that you can really get into the details. And Alagbon Close is there, and so is Ikoyi Blindness, so you'll be able to pay attention and see these kinds of details appear in his work. So the next thing that I want to ask you about is young African pioneers, because actually the political cartoon that opened this session is from that period. Can you tell us about young African pioneers? Because this was actually a political, political youth movement that was part of the Shrine.
Yeah. Okay, like I mentioned about Kwame Nkrumah earlier on, part of what we learned from reading Kwame Nkrumah's books was the idea Nkrumah had. He wanted to have an indigenous boys scout or boys brigade. So in Ghana, he set up the Ghana Young Pioneers, he called them. So when we read about that, we loved the idea so much. When I'm saying we now, I eventually brought in two other friends to the fold. Durotimi Kujenyo. He was supposed to be here today. I don't know. Is he here? Okay. And also, a third friend was Mabino Ricaudedo. He's based in Paris. So we became like the three musketeers. The FESTAC, Festival of Arts and Culture, was coming to Nigeria of 1977. So by 1976, the federal military government decided they wanted to do something about the perennial crazy traffic situation in Lagos. So an officer in the Nigerian army called Colonel Paul Tafa was given the assignment to sanitize, that was the word, to sanitize the crazy traffic in Lagos. So Colonel Paul Tafa made the announcement that military officers will be, checking traffic, and they had a right to horsewhip errand drivers. And when we had that, we felt it was a bit barbaric. We felt it wasn't progressive. So as young African pioneers, we talked about it with our leader, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who had the forum of setting up a world press conference at that point in time to make our observations known to the public. So Fela had this huge press conference, all the newspapers were represented. The next day, we bought all the newspapers. Shocker. Some didn't bother to report anything. Some wrote like 2 sentences, and we were so disappointed. And in our disappointment, we had a meeting, and we said to Fela, I beg, make we start our own newspaper, Joe. And Fela had money. So Fela said, okay. So we eventually bought a press. But this was the first edition. Mm-hmm. We printed about 50,000 of these. And then we started distributing on a co-bridge everywhere in Lagos. We were distributing. Mm-hmm. So we were looking for trouble. This was part of what led to the burning of Fela's house eventually. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I came up with my cartoon. That's what you see there. Yeah, that's the cartoon. That's the military person horsewhipping an elderly person.
With a koboko.
With koboko.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ah, so you know koboko now.
My driver showed me one and I was scared.
Okay. So you see the way I play around with the logic. These are the children of this man. You know.
Yes.
They saw the military man horsewhipping their parent, and they held him. And you see, they say, horsewhip on our papa. For all this yama, we no go agree at all. It's, representing what the masses are thinking. Because it was a prelude to Festac. Mm-hmm. The refuse collection wasn't done properly. Lagos was still very dirty. Road construction, see potholes. We are still there. Oh, this is 41 years ago. Potholes, you see how I label the construction company. It's a German company. But I twisted the name to Jobless Beggars and Co. overseas. Then look at the road construction project 1, 2, 3, 4. Rate 2 kilos per year, slow and steady, and it's still happening in Nigeria till today. It's still happening. So we come up with this. Lo and behold, one afternoon, bright afternoon, we had power bikes rumble into the shrine gate. They parked, and we looked out. Military police. Military police, they are the police of the military. Mm-hmm. They have this red helmet. And they came down with stone faces. They approached us. We have our secretariat in the shrine. And luckily enough for us, we were all like teenagers. So when they approached, we already knew we were in trouble. They had a letter. And they said, from Mada Barracks in Apapa, Ajegunle. Mada Barracks, very, notorious. Like any typical military barrack. If you ever get taken to that place, you are in big trouble. So they had this letter. They said they wanted to see the officials of YAP. So we just feigned innocence. I would say, our Oga no deal. So they said, okay. They handed over there. They said, tell your Oga, make a report for Mada Barracks tomorrow. So when they left, we opened the letter. I learned one word again, because I love to read a lot. One word. In the letter, they said, the military government have noted our innuendo in the YAP newsletter. They were referring to this. So I said, innuendo. I checked the meaning. I said, So we just closed our secretariat that day and just disappeared for a while.
The symbology, or what is it, the African continent appears quite often in a lot of your work. And interestingly enough, I see that you've done the same thing with one of your portrait photos.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what this symbol means for you and why you used it very often? You did it, for example, here. This is the shrine. Not the shrine, sorry,
okay.
It's the Kalakuta.
That's me. See me here. See Lemi.
Oh yeah, that's right. So this is not the shrine. This is
Kalakuta. After
yes.
it was burnt, so we visited and we're talking.
So can you tell me a little bit, because this is you painted?
Yes, the Africa 70 logo.
Yeah.
Africa is my continent. Like I said, I've been always conscious about my race, about my identity. So I don't compromise that with anybody. I don't feel inferior to any human being in this world. Because of that consciousness and being an artist, I love to illustrate, Africa. Like you saw in that photograph. I did a short stint, less than 2 years, in the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing as a civil servant. But I had a photographer come. He would take pictures. When I collect my salary, I pay him. I was learning everything from Fela branding. That's why, I successfully branded myself, through the years. You see my logo. You see the sticker I put on my artworks. When I finish my artwork, I created a sticker with my picture, just like what Fela has done. And I say, original Ghariokwu Lemi artwork, handle with care. And that gave me my first branding. So
you'll see one of these, or two of them actually, in the case, in the display case.
Yeah, from way back. So I always loved that figure of Africa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved that map a lot.
So can you tell us about Sunday Jump? This was the moment that you yourself, 'cause
Yeah.
you weren't really going to the shrine on other days,
No.
right?
Yes, that's why I keep saying know thyself. That's the way I survived Kalakuta experience. Because if we don't know ourselves, we get sucked in. It's good to have heroes, mentors, idols, but it's good to know what you want to take from them and add to your own. Don't get lost. So, for me, by nature, my nature was totally different from Fela. But when it came to ideology, we agree 105%. Fela used to have 4 shows. That's to show you how hardworking he was. 4 shows a week. Imagine, 4 shows a week. Tuesdays, he calls that ladies' night. Ladies are free. That's where he gets a lot of the girls. Ladies are free. They can come with their boyfriends. Friday, he called Yabis night. That means on Fridays, the fans come. They want to hear him talk. He was going to talk about minors, you know, what is happening, like if it was Fela's time, on Friday, people will come, he will lampoon the government officials, lampoon anybody. So Saturday, he called comprehensive show, in the sense that he used to have 4 dancers in this cage form of performance every show, but on Saturdays, all the dancers, all of them, possibly about 16 or 20, we do choreography. And also on Saturdays, he does his traditional religious worship right there on stage. So that was comprehensive. Then Sunday Jump was for Sunday. It was more like a family kind of thing, because Sunday Jump starts at 6 and ends at 11. But the other shows were very nocturnal for somebody like me. Fela will come on stage like 2 a.m., you perform till 6 a.m. For me, I didn't like that. It didn't suit my lifestyle. Even though I got into issues with Fela sometimes I'll come right after they had the show last night. Maybe something happened, maybe a police raid or something, and they are telling the juicy story. And Fela will say, Lemi, you know they there. You know, you'll be feeling like, sometimes say, you'll be mommy's pet. But my nature, I kept listening to myself. This is what I want for myself. So I marked my territory from day one. So every Sunday I attended, because I replaced that with church. I never went to church anymore. Sunday Jump. For 4 years straight, I was going to Sunday Jump every Sunday. And I started doing cartoons. That's the purposefulness, because I had a role to play. So every Sunday I would do 2 cartoons, one in black and white and one in color. One survived. I think you have it outside.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I have an image of it behind.
Okay. That's it. So I called it Lemi's Opinion. That's about branding. I was conscious of what I was doing. I got this idea for Lemi's Opinion from Time magazine or Newsweek magazine. There was an artist in America called Laurie. So he used to do his own and called Laurie's Opinion. So that's why it's good to research whatever field you find yourself in. That's why I've survived 43 years. I keep recreating myself, because I keep getting in tune with what is relevant and what is going on. So it's very important that we have that purposefulness. So I contributed cartoons every Sunday. And then whenever Fela released a new album, there is a pillar in the center of the shrine where I put the 2 cartoons. But if it's a new album that was released that period, that week, that Sunday, I will not put the cartoon. I'll put a copy of the album cover. And that's where I learned to talk. By nature, I'm a very shy person, withdrawn. But with Kalakuta experience, one day Fela just called me, said, "Let me come. When you reach shrine, you go explain your artwork." And he gave me the microphone. So I had to explain my artwork. So anytime an album comes out, because my art did not illustrate literally Fela's lyrics, I illustrated from my own point of view, because I shared the ideology with him. And he trusted me totally. He knew I would not, mess around with the opportunity. And I used the opportunity effectively. So some of the images I have on the cover did not tally with the lyrics. But in theme, in content, it tallied with the thoughts that Fela was trying to promote with that particular song. So I eventually created a column on some of the album covers where I needed to explain and express what my art was talking about. So I call that designer's comment. It's part of the branding. Then I used to put my picture like my passport picture on the back sleeve with my name and copyright reserved. It was part of the branding. And Fela, one of the greatest things I will remember him for and by is the opportunity he gave me. He gave me total freedom. He never, questioned when I came up with those ideas. He loved the ideas, and I just rode on that crest. And here I am today.
So we almost have to wrap up. We have like 3 more slides. I hope that you'll be a little bit patient with me so that we can get through them. And we have to talk a little bit fast, Lemi. So, one of the things that's quite fascinating is that Fela paid for an ad in the 70s, 500 naira. Can you tell us a little? I actually have the ad behind us. Can you tell us about this idea of what was behind it? Because it's quite interesting to see how art can actually move into the commercial advertising space and occupy that kind of space, and to do that with generosity, and what his motivations were behind that. Because this is also something that you designed for him.
Yeah, in 1975, Murtala Mohammed was assassinated. We Kalakuta people, so to speak, who fell in love with Murtala Mohammed because, one, Fela was a vibrant user of marijuana. And the police tried unsuccessfully on many occasions to, get him nabbed so he can go to jail for just a spliff. You could go to jail for 10 years. So when Murtala Mohammed came in, like there's so much hypocrisy in the world though. Murtala was a bit realistic. He felt it was too bizarre to jail somebody for 10 years. Most of them smoke too. So Murtala reduced it to 6 months. And we said, wow, heavy brother, And unfortunately, Murtala lasted only 6 months or so. He was assassinated. So the thing went back to 10 years. But importantly, so we had a meeting and Fela said we need to support, the ideals to show our support for Murtala. It's not typical of Fela to support a government or something. So Fela had a show at National Stadium, free show for that event. And also, he put out this paid advertisement in Daily Times. He asked me to do the design. So he put this quote, and you can see today, we can see how relevant it is. We call him chief priest because the shrine, like he said, the church, you have the pastor or the reverend. The mosque, you have the imam, So the shrine has a chief priest. So we call him chief priest. So when he buys up space to advertise his shows or to make some comments, social comments, he called it chief priest say. That means, the pastor is talking or something like that. So I used that chief priest say as headline. And this was what he wanted Nigerians to know about. He said, our country must have a definite revolutionary ideology to progress. E.g., for example, Nkrumahism. Otherwise, we shall never have a stable country. We shall always be losing our valuable properties. We shall be losing our good leaders too. Let's all think and unite. And he says, please, paste in your room. It cost me 500 naira. Yes, that was a lot of money. That's almost buying a B2 car. So it's not a joke. He wanted you to know how valuable that information is. So he said, please, paste in your room. It cost me 500 naira. To always remember in the long future that I said it. Are we not in the long future now? Then, see me. Ghariokwu Lemi, the designer of this artwork, is a living witness. That is my branding. Yeah.
So on that note, shall we go to questions, Lemi?
If you want to continue, I did.
Okay, so the first question comes from Facebook. You said earlier that consciousness had come in 1975. Can you talk about what exactly it meant for consciousness to come? Have you been seeking it out, or did it come to you by accident?
Okay. I've been conscious originally. More consciousness actually came by 1975. I'd read so many more conscious books. When we say conscious, we're talking about mental. Because the problem that is holding Africa back today is mental. It's no longer physical. We Africans were taken as slaves and chattels. physically from 1503. We are in 2017. 1503 now is 514 years. So that's a long time for any race to allow itself to be, vilified, downpressed, repressed, you understand, and miseducated. Because that's where there's so much danger in lack of consciousness. We keep trying to be somebody else. We keep trying to ape other people. You look at our society today, most of us are dressed like we're in New York. Sometimes I look in the street, I say, I want people there, Joe, I want Brooklyn. Shugban mentality here. You get? Oh, sorry. I look, I say, these people look like Brooklyn people in New York. I say, but they don't have the mentality. You understand? The mentality is very important. That's one key problem, the core of our problems in Nigeria. The mentality is wrong. We have low self-esteem as human beings. We feel inferior to other people. So anything from anywhere, we want to follow. Look at our women, for example. The women are the most powerful, potent force to liberate any human being. The woman is the first mother, the first teacher, the first doctor, the first philosopher that any human being knows. No matter how great a man is today, the man went through a woman. Imagine how glorious it will be if our women get liberated. We know Fela's story. Maybe for those who don't know, let me quickly recap. Fela was not conscious until 1969 when he was in the US for 10 months. He had this girlfriend called Sandra Isidore, now Sandra McNish. She's still alive. They call her the mother of Afrobeat. It was a woman, singularly, that challenged Fela. Fela was composing a song called Obe. You know Obe, soup, in the lady's house in Los Angeles. And the lady said, what's the meaning of this song? And Fela said, I don't like soup without pepper and so on. And the lady said, for the problem of black people. So you are singing about soup. And Fela became embarrassed. And the lady said to Fela, you don't know about Marcus Garvey, you don't know Nkrumah, you don't know Malcolm X. The lady was a member of the Black Panther movement. And the lady even beat up police in Los Angeles. And Fela, who had this, African macho feeling, felt really depleted. So Fela said, show me a book. And the lady handed over the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read that in 1975. Go and check it out. In Jamaica, it was banned. When I was speaking with Peter Tosh, Peter was telling me, if they saw you with autobiography of Malcolm X in the 70s in Jamaica, police would beat the shit out of you. From that, consciousness started coming. Fela got back, threw away the classical training he had. That's why Fela started singing Alu John John Ki John. And he started speaking pidgin vigorously. And today, he created Afrobeat music. Far from the classical music experience. You understand? So, we need to be conscious. It was also an Igbo lady that showed Fela how to sha. You understand? So, women are very powerful. Very, very. Today, I look at our women, 90% or more have straightened hair. Sometimes I'm looking at these on-air personalities on TV. I just, my stomach rumble when they're talking. I say, waiting be that one. Now God do you like that? You understand? How can fellow human being like us twist our mind and we feel inferior? What's wrong with being natural? You understand? And then we pass it on to the children. Religion, we're not going to even touch that one. Over religiosity, don't kill this country, finish. In Yoruba, I tell people, a good character is better than religion. You understand? Over religiosity, look at all the negatives are here. We behave like Satan children. And we call every minute God. Oyinbo know they call God every minute. Oyinbo is creating. God has given us brain and talent. Create, produce. You understand? So that's the essence. Awareness, consciousness is very important. So this lady that you see here, I give salute. She's not a Nigerian in any sense. She didn't know me from Adam. But she studied, she listened to Fela's music, saw the message, saw the art, and she got this project and she said, this is what I'm going to do. This is not a commercial project in this project that we are here. This one is for history. It's for documentation. It's for people like you and me, to learn from and see the possibilities that it's possible. I'm a typical example. No be book. Fela said book sense is different from belle sense. Look book and go your way. You understand? So no, if it's book, how many degrees come out in Nigerian university every year? Millions. What have we produced? Ordinary toothpick will no fit. Everything China. You understand? Very soon we'll start to dress like Indians. We'll put red teeth here. You understand? We are so lost. And Fela said one time in Ghana, he was being interviewed, and he said African people are like one of the most confused people in this world. And that is very true. So how long are we going to allow ourselves to be like this? Africa is the richest place. Go and listen to Peter Tosh's song, Mama Africa. He said, Africa is the richest place, but it has the poorest grace. So we need to check ourselves. Look at Nigeria. What? 2017, look at how they are running the country. Is this how to run a country? We thought it natural. So all the wealth in this country. Don't seek it. Don't go London. Go stay 6 months. Have you ever seen that kind of logic? We need to be conscious, please, my brothers and sisters. That's reality. We need to be conscious.
So somebody out here has a question to ask you if you've encountered anybody that has struck you as much as Fela.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Interestingly, I never saw myself as a revolutionary, and I'm not a revolutionary, sincerely. I'm an evolutionary. I believe in planning, evolving, growing, because that is nature. You cannot wake up at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. and expect to see the sun by force. So I believe that. But revolutionaries are important in society because the world itself is in a perpetual state of war. This life is a war zone. It's a battle zone. Because people will come, take your land from you. I was in Australia. I learned about the Aborigines. I said, everywhere Babylon don't conquer. They were even, their money even has Queen Elizabeth in Australia. You understand? So I believe strongly that, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. Direct me back. What was the question?
Maybe what we'll do. Sorry,
yeah.
I even lost the question. Yeah. So have you met anybody besides Fela that's like really impressed you?
Okay, yeah, that was where I was going when I used the word revolutionary. So my heroes are mostly revolutionary, all. I mentioned them, you have an idea. Malcolm X, vibrant, by any means necessary. Because we need those warrior spirits. They are important. We all cannot be warriors. I'm not a warrior. If I was with the American government, I would be with the CIA. We could plan the thing. Now that one I did. So Fela to warrior. Winston Hubert McIntosh. I don't joke with that man. Peter Tosh. I met him twice. Because there was a reason. The universe connected me and Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh is like Fela. But the powers of the people who control information twisted everything. Peter Tosh today, people hardly remember him. But if you want to do research for consciousness, listen to Peter Tosh's song. Go and listen to Equal Rights and Justice, where he says, everybody is talking about crime. Who are the criminals? Check that out. And many more songs. Peter Tosh is also a revolutionary. I met him twice. We did Ground Nation, like the Rastas will say. I'm a Rasta man at heart. Because Rasta is the nearest to what Africa can hold on to. They have their own god, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. She's from Ethiopia, Eritrea. Selassie. That is essence. You want to worship somebody will be like you. I'm telling you. Feel like yourself. I asked Peter Tosh in Sonny Okosun's house. You remember Sonny Okosun, everybody? Yeah. Sonny Okosun was Peter's host. I sat with Peter. We spoke like 3 hours. We kept talking and talking. At the last minute, I said to Peter, when do you think Africa will be free? He looked at me and said, He said, not a microbe of a second, more or less, until the time Jah prescribed. He said, because Africans worship foreign gods. That is deep. That is very deep. It's like you have your father. Because somebody, supposedly, maybe the father reached for your own face. You drop your father, they worship another father. You cannot make it. You understand? So it's important that we know who we are. So my heroes are like that. So if I want to answer your question directly, I put Fela and Peter Tosh together. No apologies. Fela and Peter Tosh. Peter legalized it. Fela, same thing. Peter got beaten. You see Peter's back. If you watch Fela's documentary, you see his back. The same thing with Peter Tosh. He even had his skull fractured, just like Fela also. So the two of them are warriors. But the press refused to connect them properly. They used the other Coca-Cola commercial one to compare. No, it's wrong. For Africa to be conscious, we need to listen to those leaders that had thought. Other heroes, South African, Stephen Bantu Biko, I write what I like. Those are warrior spirits. Then talk about Thomas Sankara. Talk about Kwame Nkrumah. Talk about Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Those are heroes. I'm mentioning these names. This is the age of internet. Google the names. Go and read their books so you can check yourself and realize why we are in this quagmire. Because these people who run affairs here are not the people to run their affairs because they are not conscious. There's no purposefulness. There's no ideology. How can a country grow without ideology? You want to do democracy. You see, fella said demonstration of Christ. Not be demonstration of Christ. It's alien. So teacher, don't teach me nonsense. So you too, student, don't take nonsense from teacher.
I would like you to do something for us, Lemi. Can you read the text? This is something that you wrote many years ago. Can you read it for us?
Okay. When I bought the same book, become very prophetic. I said, this drawing came with the book. So I saw like a hollow. So I wrote, there are a billion ways of seeing this hollow. You may have seen it first on opening this page. You may see it when about to open to the next. Firstly, you may not. Such is life. There are a billion ways of making a headway in life. It is either early in your lifetime, late or never. I have a feeling deep down me, I'm going to make it in art, and make it I will. I wrote this September 1, 1975.
Thank you, Lemi.
And considering I didn't have any example to follow, when I sought Fela's advice again later on that, which work I go kuku do now? Fela said, just the design album cover now. Now your work with that. And my spirit said, yes. And there was nobody, even till date, when I travel out, they asked me, I feel a bit embarrassed. They said, can you mention any other professional sleep designer? There is none, only me. Now I just take them as full-time job. And in the process, I've designed covers for over 100 different artists globally. As I speak, I have 2 covers to do from Australia, as I speak. Last year, I did from Brazil, I did from Chile, I did from France, I did from Canada last year. So, it's internet age. I just open my email, I just see somebody wants to do a cover. And it's very interesting these days. Sometimes I look in the sky, I say, fella, where you do? Come and see you. The technology. Press and make the light spark. That's what fella translated to be. It's very interesting. Very interesting. You see, I'm very happy. I feel very fulfilled. I have my sense of purpose intact. I've lived my life the best way I want. I determine what I want to do. My studio is in Pedro Pangrove. I close at 3 p.m. It's strange. Some people say, 3 p.m. I said, I'm done. 3 p.m., I know that traffic, it go kill me. So I leave home at 6:15. I have my last born son here. I drop him in school. Okay, that's him. Yeah. Because he has artistic talents, I insisted that he come with me. I'm a very simple man. I don't like to force anyone. I have 4 children, but society is tough. Influence of society. Sometimes on your spouse is going this way. You are going this way. To be conscious is a burden at times. So my little son here, he has talent. Every time I see it, but I don't want to push him so it doesn't look like, you want him to do your work. So this time around, I felt like it would be a disservice for my son not to come and witness this. I told him, art is great. Everybody knows music is great. Even comedy is great too. But art also is great. It has to be purposeful also. So he's seen a lot today. When we go back home, I'll ask him, what do you like? What do you see? What do you feel? So it's part of the grooming. Because we have to groom the next generation properly. They say the youth is the leader of tomorrow. That nabobo. You have to start taking charge today. Fela said music is the weapon of the future. The future is here. The future is here. My own art is a tool because I'm not a revolutionary. It's not a weapon, it's a tool. So that's how I put it.
So on that note, I will say thank you very much, Lemi.